Welcome to a homegrown family podcast where we grow the produce and the kids. Hey everybody, welcome to a homegrown family podcast. I'm your host, Joe Metler, and today I have my dad as a guest, and we're going to be talking about calving, cattle, calves. Before we get into it though, I just want to remind everybody that I do have a support the podcast link below in the show notes. You're welcome to quote unquote buy me a coffee if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast. I don't make any money on this podcast, but I do pay a subscription for my hosting platform. So kind of hoping to cover a little bit of that cost there, but feel free to make a small donation. Hit the link below. All right, back to it here. So my dad grew up raising cattle and eventually bought his own dairy operation in the 1980s. And from dairy, he went into beef for various reasons that was mentioned in a previous episode. But let's talk about calving. So every year you have calves to increase the herd and to sell off and to make money, right? So
that's the plan.
That's the plan.
Sometimes things don't go according to plan.
Yeah. So you started off doing dairy, and dairy calving quite different than a beef calving operation.
Well, yeah, and the dairy calving can be different from one operation to the next too, depending on what facilities they have.
That's true. We have some in-law connections that have probably quite a different operation than what we got going on.
With our dairy, a lot of times our cows would be in the stall when they were pregnant, so we have a cow calving which was standing in her stall. We didn't have a special maternity area or anything. We didn't have a free-stall barn, so they didn't have their own special area for the pregnant cows. So, you come out the barn, there might be a calf in the gutter.
I was going to say, usually, I guess, yeah, you're actively milking, because you never stop their lactation, right?
Cows get dried up for about a month or so. A month, 6 weeks.
Okay.
And so if you need her spot in the barn for another cow, you bring another cow in. But if you don't have a separate area for the cows that are close to calving, and you don't need that spot for another cow, she continues to come in the barn. And hopefully you notice when she's going to calve, you put her in a separate area so she doesn't calve in the gutter. But it doesn't happen all that way all the time. Well, something it might interest people is that, with a dairy cow, a lot of times you don't let the calf drink on her at all. You just milk the colostrum out, feed the calf the colostrum, and then start feeding the calf milk replacer, and the calf never drinks on the cow.
Right, so there's a calf and cow separation process that takes place.
Not a process, they're just never allowed to go together.
Yeah, so they give birth, and then they put them into calving huts where the calves all kind of hang out together and turn to bottle calves, and they really don't have much of a life with the mom, and then you either use them as replacement heifers, I suppose, or the majority of them probably go off and go to market when it comes to...
If you're on a small dairy, most of the heifers end up replacement heifers, and whole calves are sold a couple weeks old or fed out and sold later.
Yeah, so the primary breed that's typically a part of a dairy operation is the Holstein. You may have a couple other, the Holstein, I guess, is your typical black and white, cow. And then you might have a couple other breeds that you maybe use for a milk cow.
There you can find some operations that have all jerseys and stuff like that. They're usually registered Guernseys, too. But it's mostly Holsteins, yeah.
What are some other breeds besides Guernseys and Jerseys?
Ayrshire, Brown Swiss, Milking Shorthorn. That covers most of them right there, yeah.
So what are the benefits to having those other breeds?
Well, the other ones have more solids, mainly. They're smaller animals, so they don't take as much feed, some of them. Some of it's preference, I imagine. Jersey's a lot easier to work with than a big old Holstein.
A little bit smaller animal. I imagine the fat content, you meant solids, like the fat content for making butter, you might get better quality butter out of some.
Oh, yeah. Well, Brown Swiss, not so much, but Jerseys and Guernseys, I think, both have high butter fat and high protein. We digress. This is dairy. I haven't done dairy in a long time.
You haven't done dairy for a long time, I know. But it's kind of interesting noting some of the differences, I guess, and maybe I'll have to get some of my brother-in-laws in on here one day and get the average life of a dairy farmer. So that'd be kind of interesting.
Get the average life of a dairy cow.
Yeah. But for those of you guys who are listening here that are thinking, hey, I'd like to get a milk cow to have in my homestead, probably wouldn't get a Holstein because they are bigger, cost a little more to feed, and you probably aren't going to be able to drink as much milk as they're going to produce.
No, you want one of the colored breeds.
Dad has hand milked a cow for quite a while, and that's typically not a Holstein. We've used a couple of different breeds there.
Brown Swiss and Jersey, mainly.
Primarily, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so the dairy operation, the cow and calf are pretty much separated right away. And then in the beef operation, you still have like a 9-month gestation period for cows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this with the lambs episode, the sheep episode, but so you typically put the bulls into the cows at what time of year?
Any time of the year, basically. But the majority of beef cattle are probably calved between February and March and into May. There are actually some that calve in the spring and in the fall. That way, if you have cows that are running late, you can hold them back a little bit and calve them in the fall the next time around. So you don't have to cull them right away if they don't get bred. But that's kind of to me, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, so we're giving birth, hopefully February, March here in the upper Midwest.
Right now, we start calving about April and finishing in May.
Yeah, so Dad does it a little bit later to avoid some of that cold weather.
Yeah.
But I've heard stories of farmers out there with their kids' snow sled, going out there to go get a calf to bring it into the barn to keep it warm.
Mom has done it.
So that's always a challenge here in this climate. So what are the main differences you'd say then with the beef operation? How do you run your calving situation? And you have the various paddocks or pens that kind of Dave and I talked about in the past in different episodes, how you move them around. And so if the cow is born, you're checking them every single day basically when they're supposed to be calving. And then I guess what are you looking for in the cow to know that she's getting close to calving? And then what do you do the day the calf's born?
These last few years when I'm calving, I used to go out and check them even in the middle of the night sometimes. That's one of the reasons we're with Angus breed right now, is that they calve a little easier, mostly easier calving. But anyway, check them late in the evening and check them early in the morning. Well, Margaret checks them during the day because I'm working. But a cow that's ready to calve, well, first you'll see her bagging up. That doesn't necessarily something you can go by too much. And sometimes they'll calve before they get bagged up. But she'll go off by herself. If the cow goes off by herself, away from the cows, guaranteed she's calving within a couple of days. So you keep an eye on those. Usually within 24 hours, they'll be calving. In fact, if a cow is by herself for over 24 hours, stay away from the cows, I would check her to see if she's having difficulty calving. That constitutes getting her in the barn or something and sleeving her.
Yeah, Dad mentioned bagging up. That's when we're talking about the udder, getting full and getting ready to produce milk. And then another slang word there. Sleeving her. That's where you grab the big rubber glove and you might go elbow deep and see what's going on in there.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, I don't usually use gloves, but
that's one thing that kind of. I don't know, every time I do one of these episodes, I like to learn a little bit more about, what Dad kind of is working on. I have some ideas of things he's done, whether he's told me or not. Maybe not all my siblings realize what Dad has kind of done in the past in terms of different things. And You've done a fair amount of sleeving, so to speak, for different reasons and various reasons.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your education or experience with some of that.
Well, I've done my own AI with the deep grid dairy cattle.
Artificial insemination.
That's a little different sleeving, but when they're calving, you go into the vagina and you don't have any shit in the way. When you're breeding, you go in the butthole and reach and impalpate where the cervix and where the uterine horns are to guide your straw in for your breeding. So it's different, but I was pretty good at it. I got a pretty good conception rate when I did it. An interesting story. When your sister was born, we went to birth classes, They talked about things that go wrong. And one of the things they mentioned was the placenta being presented in front of the child. As luck would have it, I had a dairy cow, who was acting like she should be calving and wasn't getting anywhere. And I reach into that cow, and I feel what it feels like placenta instead of a calf in front. So I learned about that in human birthing class, and I put it to practice in the dairy cow. I ripped through that placenta and got that calf out of there.
I suppose a lot of people in the human birthing situation try to roll the baby around in different fashion or this or that to get the set right or something. I'm not sure exactly. Or do they do C-sections at that point?
They would have to do a C-section, I'm pretty sure, on that.
If it's too late into the term? Yeah.
If it's late enough in the term.
Yeah. Huh.
Once the placenta's in the way, I don't think it moves.
Yeah. You're basically just kind of pulling a calf at that point.
Yeah. Get it out because the calf doesn't have any blood supply after you wreck the placenta.
When you're pulling them out, I mean, when you're in there, they're not birthing, they're not, cows having troubles. You reach in there, what do you expect to feel first? Feet? Heads? What are you looking for?
Feet first. Hopefully you see feet before you have to go in. If you don't see feet, you know there's a problem.
And are you looking for the back feet or front feet?
Front feet. If you see a hoof that's upside down, you got a problem too. The hoof should be upside right, up for the top of the cow. If the hoof is upside down, you got a back foot. Then the calf's backwards and it could drown before it comes out.
So all of this you mostly learn from experience and trial and error, right? Or you didn't take any specific classes for this, did you?
Well, I did have animal science classes in college.
How to do your own AI?
That's actually where I learned to do AI was in college, I believe.
Well, at least learn the concepts of it. Or
yeah.
Hands-on experience.
I took classes on it too.
Yeah. Huh.
That may have been through an AI company. I did classes, I can't remember.
Gotcha. What else can go wrong in a birthing situation? Or other issues that may arise?
Well, there's always the twins. Twins prevent their own little problems, so they can be tangled up, and not come out or be a surprise. This last twins we had last year, the vet pulled out a nice big heifer calf, and then he reaches in to see if he had pulled it. So he reached in to see if he had torn anything. The vets usually check that to see if the cow's bleeding, if it tore a uterus or something. He said, "Oh, we got another hoof." Pulled out a little bull calf. And this brings up another thing that can happen. The next day, I go out to see the cows and the calves in the morning before I go to work. And the cow had pushed her uterus all the way out. And when that happens, you can clean it up. You can call the vet out. Well, you can do it yourself too. You can clean it up. It's best to call the vet. The vet will give the cow a shot to keep it from pushing. Because when you try to push that uterus back in, guess what the cow is doing? Acting like she's having a calf again.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can clean it up, push it back in, sew her up so it stays in, But this cow had been out all night probably. The uterus had crap all over it. I just said, call a butcher. We'll make hamburger.
That's true, yeah. Sometimes it's better off doing that if you're planning on butchering one anyway or something.
Yeah. Some days when it doesn't pay to, call a vet.
Yep. Yeah, you mentioned twins too. I mean, twins are usually a beneficial thing. You got two animals you could sell at least or something like that, but not all pairs of twins are created equal, correct?
Yeah, if you have two different sexes, the heifer will usually be sterile. And if you have twins and the mama can't take care of both, then you kind of have an issue too of having to feed a calf or something like that. We had a milk cow I could put the twins on last year, so that worked out good.
Yeah, so then if you have two steers, no problems. And then if you have two heifers, there's no problem. But if it's one of each, then the heifers are just sterile. Okay.
Almost always the heifer is sterile. And the vet is a good friend of mine from college. The vet did tell me that if the heifer is significantly larger than the bull calf, she might be good. And so we have kept this one back for replacement. And if she doesn't turn out good, hamburger.
Yep. So the vet that Dad's talking about was also I also went to school at NDSU with some of his kids, so it's kind of interesting how that kind of loops around a little bit, and different generations kind of all interacting there with that. They're also one of the families that we always used to compete with in 4-H and everything too, showing our hogs against each other or vegetable gardening. It was either us or them that always got the championship vegetable gardener, and so that was a pretty good competition.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. So you have some issues that you might take care of. Calf's born. Some people do it with the calf right away, like tag it and things like that. Others might wait to do that till they get older. What's your process?
Well, these days, I've been tagging, last year I think I tagged both, but I like to tag this calves by sex, nothing else, so they're easy to sort. So this year I tagged all the heifers. I should have probably just tagged the steers because I only had 5 of them, but I tagged the heifers, so I ran out of tags. But for a number of years, I didn't ban the steers right away. I banned them later in the fall. Now that I don't have any kids around, I'm banning them in the spring again.
Yeah, I remember we'd always go and do some of that through the shoot and stuff, put bands on and all that type of stuff. And it was a couple kid process, It took 3 or 4 of us to get them in the corral, but once the corral came around, then you could probably get by with 2 or 3 individuals.
People may have heard of implanting calves to make them grow a little better, and it's basically it's not the same thing, but when you leave the bull intact, the testosterone of the bull calf itself makes them grow faster. That's the idea behind leaving them intact till fall. Instead of your growth hormones, you have your testosterone, which helps them grow a little faster. Yeah, mine grow pretty good either way, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm not making a living off the beef.
True, it is a dead second-time job. How many cows did you have give birth this spring?
We've had 25 calves this spring. We have 1 left that hasn't calved. But it's actually probably the first time in our 30 years of raising beef cattle, or thereabouts, that we had them all calved except for 1 in the first cycle. They calved all in 5 weeks. So that was crazy.
Time of year done the other day, and I was like, I feel like it drags on usually a little bit longer than this.
Oh, no, there's 1 left, but other than that, they're all young cows. But actually, that's usually a problem because I had probably at least 10 animals that calved the first time last year. And of those, a lot of times you'll have some that don't breed back right away because they're heifers. They're growing still. They're trying to feed a calf, so they don't start cycling right away.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, we're feeding them right.
Yeah, you primarily do pasture. You don't usually do much for extra. It's not like the dairy where you're feeding them soybean meal, extra alfalfa, and pelletized this and that. And,
We're on pasture, but we rotate pastures, and I keep fresh grass in front of them almost all the time.
That's true, yeah. Yep.
Your mother always complains our cows are too fat.
Does she really? I don't think they're all that fat. Or does it comes down when you get the steaks, they're too fat?
No, I usually don't butcher old cows for steaks.
Oh, that's funny. You said you have Angus now currently. I know we had a Murray Grey Bull growing up, and Grandpa grew Simmentals for the longest time. What did you start out with first breeds go as far as beef cows?
Well, I kind of had a Heinz 57 mix to start out with. We had a little Pinsgauer, probably a little bit of Simmental in there too. We bred, trying to think, I think we bred Murray Grey first, actually, if I remember right. That was one of the first bulls we bought. I don't remember if we bought more than one of them or not, but
the one we had was stuck around for quite a while. You rotated him around quite a bit.
And then we did do a little Red Angus somewhere along the way, but it's been mostly Black Angus. Your mother brought it up the other day, and I'm considering it, buying another Murray Grey bull. Because the Black Angus are just a little bit screwy sometimes.
Yeah, there's definitely been some wild ones.
For those who don't know, the Murray Grey is developed from Black Angus. The story goes, they're developed in Australia, and this one short-horn cow was bred Black Angus, and every calf she had was a Grey calf. And that's how they developed the breed.
Really?
So it's basically an Angus, but it's Grey.
Huh. And it's supposed to be a little bit more docile and...
Yeah.
Huh.
And you take it to the sale barn, and they think they're a Charlotte Angus cross, so you get good money for them.
It is kind of interesting how, I guess there are different, meat qualities, because you get like the Japanese Wagyu, and this and that. But when it comes to like different Angus and just generalized beef, can't be that much difference between the meat other than the color of their hair, as far as it goes to market. I mean, for some reason reds always get premiums for blacks. I don't know. Why is that?
It has to do with the marketing somewhat, and then they do select for marbling and stuff in the Angus breed, and so they do marble a little better than some of them, possibly. Not necessarily marbling better on grass, though, so you got that. If you don't want to feed grain, you might have other breeds are better at marbling. It just depends on if you're doing a cow-calf operation, you can't hardly go wrong breeding to Angus unless you have problems with temperament. That's what our operation is, cow-calf operation, basically. So.
Yeah, I remember we switched to red Angus. I think that's because we had a couple red cows, and we bred them to a black bull, and they came out red. I remember we kept our own red Angus one time.
Yeah, we did.
And he's kind of a friendly bugger. I remember there was one time where we tried moving him to a different pasture, and he just went through like 3 fences. He went through the main one right behind the barn, I think, somehow, and then he went through the one down by the creek, and he went through one by the road, and the next thing I know, he's halfway to Slipka's, and we're like,
I'm thinking that's when he wanted to get out with cows.
Yeah, I probably heard the cows out in Slipka's, yeah, and I was like, hey, I want out.
You get toward early to midsummer, and if the bull isn't with the cows, you better have a strong fence.
Yeah, maybe that's probably what it was, and maybe we were holding back with the heifers or something.
He decided it was time to go with the cows. You just open the gates and let him go.
Yeah, we kept him for a couple of years, too, and that's something that's been kind of interesting throughout the years, too, is like, you gotta attend an in-person auction to get a bull, or find it off a catalog and somehow call up and order one or something. This day and age, you can just attend an online auction. You did one here one of these times and had ordered.
The last bull we got was online.
Yeah. And you got all the stats as far as like birth weights, average birth weight from this bull cow. Like, what are stats you look at?
I look at this. I'm looking at calvings because I'm not here most of the time. They're calving, off to work. I didn't see a cow calf this year. They all calved without any help. And we had 8 heifers, I think it was. So, calvings, I look at, actually, one number I'm looking at right now is, they call it dollars a M. And it's maternal traits. I like raising my own heifers, so I want foals that are going to throw me good cows. And that also includes a smaller stature. So they're a little more moderate size. Some people will say that the size of the animals is getting too big, the frame size. Some of these animals aren't choice until they're like 1,500 pounds. Huge carcasses.
They're smaller. They eat less hay in the winter. That's something my dad who does too. Is dad grows and cuts all his own hay and bales up and everything. So smaller animals can lead to hopefully less hay, and especially when you have drought and things like that. That's helpful.
It makes a difference.
Do they have a number in terms of browsability or like grazability, or not really? Is that mostly like a by breed kind of thing?
I'm trying to think if
some cows will forage, some breeds will forage more than others.
Yes, they do say some breeds will finish better on grass, but I don't think, at least the Angus breed doesn't have a number for that on their EPDs.
Yeah. What's that breed that David had?
Tarrantay.
David had some Tarrantay, and if it's a hot day in the middle of summertime, the Tarrantay will be still out in the pasture eating grass, and all the rest of the cows will kind of be hanging out by the woods in the shade.
Yeah, they seem to be a much. Well, actually, I bought a Tarrantay bull here not a couple years back too. He had some big calves. He had some calving issues. But yeah, they seem to be better grazers, better browsers. They out there eating. You don't want an animal that's going to sit around for half the day when it should be eating grass, sitting under a tree and shitting all in the same spot. Spread that manure out a little bit in the pasture.
Yeah. Kind of getting back to the calving thing. So the first day, we put a band on them, and then he'll tag them. So we have these 3 separate paddocks. One that's kind of by a silo or close to the road that they always calve in.
Yeah, they're not really paddocks at that time of year. They're just yards.
Yeah, different yards, yeah. Dad kind of moves them around too. And then the second yard is usually one in the middle where older calves, how old are they when you move them over?
They can be as young as a day. I usually get them over there before they're 3 or 4 days old.
Young enough to where if you have to grab them to run over there with them.
By the time they're 2 days old, you don't grab them very easily.
So then Dad moves them over to the middle, and once he gets, a good solid number in the middle, then he might move them over to the third area, which is
that in recent years. But when I had 40 or 50 cows, I did do that. Yeah.
Okay, so now they kind of stay in the middle till they're all ready and done, and ready to go on grass.
The idea behind this is you get the cows with the calves out of the area where the cows are calving. So when the cows are calving, they're not messing around with other calves. They're paying attention to their calf, and the calves aren't getting mixed up. The cows have been in this area all winter, right? You get them out of there. We've never had any problem with scours. Some people have scours problems with their calves. We've never had a problem with that. And that's part of the reason to get them out of there right away.
What exactly is scours?
It's a digestive issue. They just get the shits. And it can kill a calf. I mean, they just get dehydrated and they'll go down. If you get bad scours, it has to be treated or they will die.
Is that usually from people when they try to eat in grass or something next to areas of high manure concentration or something?
Ingesting some pathogens that are on the ground, yeah. They don't eat grass that early. But it must be.
That's what I was kind of wondering.
It must be from crap on the cow's tits. Cows lay down, get some crap on their tits, and the calf drinks and ingest the pathogens. And so we like to get them moved to a nice, clean spot.
And you go to grass, and that's pretty much how it goes after a while. Then I guess you put them out in the pasture, and once they're all done, keep any problem childs behind and any late calvers behind.
We have the last 40 calves that are still here, but there's plenty of grass around the barns here, so we're letting them eat that.
Are all the rest of the cows still around the barn?
We are just about done with our first rotation on the pastures. We just moved them. We just did the across the highway move and had no issues.
That's pretty good.
Although we got Uncle Richard to help, so we had 3 people. But that one's kind of tricky with just 2 people, especially young calves.
You said your herd's pretty young right now, but Dad always kind of, at least when I was younger, he always seemed to kind of hold on to a select few cows that were always really good at, calling to the combust, and coming to the gate, train the young ones in.
That's another issue. We had a breeding issue and a drought issue where we ended up selling basically all of our herd over the course of 3 years and building up with young heifers. So we have 3, 2, and 1 year old cows out there right now.
Gotta try and get the hang of things, yeah.
We have one older one. That's the one that has a calf. And we have that flop-eared one. She's up in the yard here.
Yeah, this spring, I was fortunate to be home when Dad needed some assistance on doing something with one of the cows. And our daughter was able to join in on some of that fun and went down to the back shed there, and there's some big round bales in there, but Dad and I kind of set up a little pen and put my daughter on one of the bales and said, hey, just kind of hang out and watch. She's only 2.5 years old, but I'm like, hey, you have to be quiet until the cow's in the barn, okay? Because I don't want to have her make some noise as the cow's coming and chase her back the other way, basically, So we got the cow in, and it wasn't more than a second after that cow was through the barn. Hey, look, there's a cow. Started making noise.
She was a very calm cow.
Yeah, fortunately. So what did we have to do with that one?
That was an issue you get once in a while with the cattle is you have a retained placenta. She doesn't expel her placenta when she has her calf. And if you don't do something with it, the cow can get an infection, which will delay her getting bred back. And you don't want that. You want them all calved in the first heat if you can. Which makes great. I love it.
Yeah.
It's it. The first time it's happened, I think, but for us. But she had been 3 days since she calved, I think, and the placenta was still hanging halfway out. So I did get a glove and reached in there and, tried to pull as much placenta out as we could. And then I gave her some uterine boluses. I've been told you can't get those commercially anymore.
Oh.
They have
Bolus is basically just like
antibiotics
there's an antibiotic that you put in the uterus there, yeah. Yeah.
I've had them for a while. I don't go through them very often.
Yeah. That was kind of cool once we kind of had the cow up in a smaller pen within the shed there, and we had to lasso her and kind of get her up tight against the panels there that we had her up. We made that temporary smaller pen, and then my daughter was able to come down close to the pen and kind of hang out and say, hey, what's Grandpa doing? Oh, he's giving the cow medicine. Oh, and I thought I was going to hear some stories from daycare, 'cause she's always pretty eager to share what happens at Grandpa and Grandma's house at daycare, and I guess she didn't tell about how Grandpa was putting his arm up a cow's butt and giving him medicine, and I didn't hear anything.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I'd ask, hey, did you hear what they did at the farm the other day? Oh, no, Sophie didn't say. Oh, she gave the cow medicine. Oh, okay. Forgo the details. It's kind of funny. So, yeah, a pretty good calving season this year, which is awesome. There's always some ups and downs with the calving. Twins are great, and when cows move where they're supposed to, that's great too. And before we wrap up this episode, there is one instance where, and I really should share this perspective of David and I on this at a later episode when maybe we talk about something different.
Are we going to talk the Longhorn again?
Yes. Because I want to get Dad's perspective on it. So let's start from the beginning. Yeah. We moved from one of these pen areas, or these paddocks to call them, I guess, or whatever. These areas moving from the one by the road to the one in the middle. So this calf's, 3-4 days old or whatever. And take her away.
Well, I had field work to do. So I'm doing field work west of where the cows are. And there's a creek in between me and the cows, and I asked David to go out and move this cow with her calf over to the older calf pen.
Pause 1 second. He told us to move the cows, and when I grew up, Dad told you to do something. You did it immediately. And so I'm like, okay, Dave, let's go. I don't know, I'm like, I think 14. Something like that. And I'm like, David, all right, Dad told us to move cows. Let's go. Come on, let's go. He's like, 1 second. He's doing something. He wasn't very fast about it. And I think Mom maybe was even chipping in. I was like, oh, well, just wait for your brother, and then you can go do it. Because it's one of the first times that Dad's asked me to do this by myself. I've done it with Dad a couple times, but I haven't done it by myself yet. And David was being slow. And so then I decided to go myself. David slowly followed behind. But
you might have been better with him with you. True.
I know.
Strength in numbers sometimes when it comes to cows.
Yeah.
Anyway, this particular cow had a set of horns that put out about, maybe 1.5 foot wide spread.
What's the spread of my hips?
just big enough to catch his hips on both sides. Yeah. And I'm working this field up, and I'm watching him down there, and I see this cow pick off after Joe and flip him up in the air, and I went, oh crap. I got off that tractor pretty quick.
You're about a quarter mile away, though.
A couple 100 yards, probably, is all.
Okay.
Quarter mile. But I had to get across that creek, too. And I get over there, and by that time, they had gotten outside the fence, so the cow wasn't after them anymore. Well, Dave was behind a tree, I think. You were on the fence, or something like that.
Yeah, I think by the time you got there, we were to the point where I was like, all right, David, grab your stick and let's go at it one more time. I was like, so finally Dave was ready to come help me out. And then Dad's like, yeah, get back to the house. I'll take care of this one.
Yeah. I think if I remember right, I grabbed her calf, started walking toward the shed where the gate was. I should say, at first I grabbed about a 4-foot long, 2-inch diameter stick. And I'm walking up the hill with that calf, and the cow's following me close. Like she might be thinking about doing something stupid. I turned around and said, "Are you dumb?" And I think I maybe cracked her across the head first before I did that, actually, before I picked up the calf.
Yeah. That's one of those tips and tricks that you learn a little bit later that typically when you grab a cow's not going to do anything to you because the calf's right there and they don't want to hurt the calf. So that's a tip that I learned after that. I wasn't big enough to carry it anyway.
I had one this year I never tagged, a heifer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would walk toward the calf, and the cow was on the other side of the calf. And usually, cow's on the other side of the calf. She's kind of making some threatening gestures toward you. But she backs up a little bit as you're coming toward the calf. This one here met me in front of the calf. And I said, "No, I don't need to take the calf that bad."
So she backed up between you and the calf, and then...
she just, instead of backing up like they normally do when I'm walking toward the calf, they'll back up, and try and call her calf toward them. And this one come toward me and got, so her head was over the calf. And I'm like 4 or 5 feet away, and I'm going, I don't need to take the calf that bad. Because when you grab the calf, a lot of times they'll go, blah, and the cow will go, whoa, boom.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, there's always some interesting interactions there. And
my neighbor is real skittish when it comes to that because the cow's taken out his knee once or twice.
Oh, that wasn't at our place, though.
Oh, no, that's Joel's place.
Gotcha.
That's why he has that pin that he puts over the calf now with the bobcat.
Yeah, it's a pretty convenient thing. You just lift the bobcat or the skid steer over and then pen them off basically from the cow. That's kind of nice.
Not something I ever felt I needed to do.
Yeah. You never know. One bad experience might change your mind, I guess, but we also don't own a bobcat, so.
That's right. That's a lot of money in them bobcats.
Yeah. Dad was always a proponent of non-motorized vehicles. And so we always chase, mostly. No 4-wheelers, ATVs, those kind of things that were deemed as toys when you have kids that can run around and chase cows for you.
Yeah. Now I just got to set up my pastures a little better so only one person needs to chase them.
Yeah. A little extra fencing going on in there. So yeah, that's kind of the calving season in a nutshell from what Dad kind of does and processes and how this year kind of went. So yeah. Thanks, Dad, for hopping on board today and kind of giving us a little bit of insight to that.
I'm just going to say, I must say, this bull I bought this last year, not from my son's in-laws, Sam's in-laws.
Yeah.
He got all the cows bred in, basically all the cows bred in their first cycle. He's only a 2-year-old, and I didn't see a cow calf, so we're keeping him for a couple more years.
Yeah, it turns out he's a good one. Isn't he a little goofy, though?
He's a little goofy, but...
Is that no, that's the one where we went out there to go do this thing with this cow or whatever, and I get over the gate, and he kind of looks at you like, kind of starts walking towards you like he's big stuff.
Yeah.
He's all just show.
He makes a lot of show.
Yeah, I was like, what kind of bull does that? So, if you had to leave any little tips or last little bit of advice for anybody that's thinking of having like a milk cow or having a small, 6 head of beef cows as part of like a homestead type of operation.
If we're doing a small operation like that, I would probably not go with Black Angus. I would go with maybe Hereford or Red Angus, calmer breeds. The Black Angus, they do sell well, but if you're not planning on making a living from selling them, I would go with something that's a little calmer.
Yeah. a tip there may be like, because buying your own bull is expensive. If you know somebody in the area,
if you know somebody that you can have them keep a bull calf back for you from their herd, if they have a decent herd, that's not a bad way to go.
Right? Because if you're not in it for all the genetics at this point, you're basically in it for a couple steers that you're going to get a year to be able to cut up, your own meat and things like that. So, yeah, or that if you're not willing to hold back a steer for you, say, hey, after you're done with your bull and your cows, I don't care if I calve in June.
If you find a neighbor that is calving off a different time than you, that's a good way to go. Be careful on your vaccinations then. Make sure you do your vaccinations and make sure they do too. You don't want lepto or something getting into your herd.
That's true, yeah.
If you're going to trade bulls with a neighbor, make sure the vaccinations are up to date.
Yeah. Or if your fences aren't very good, make sure
make sure your vaccinations are up to date. Yeah.
I just had to say that because there's been many times where our neighbor bulls or our bulls get in with the other person's herd, and
Yeah.
So far it's pretty much worked out, but it's always a pain in the butt separating them out and getting them back to where they're supposed to be.
And a lot of times the fences aren't that bad.
Yeah, it's just like a tree fell on it or something, or
the bull just decides he wants to get in the other herd.
Yeah, that's true. If a bull wants to go somewhere, he's going to go. But I'm always impressed with the people that have like a single electric wire. Like how? How's that keep a cow in? But
very calm cows.
Very calm cows. Yeah. On that note, thank you guys all for listening. Thank everyone for listening. You can shoot me an email at homegrownfam@gmail.com or follow me on the Instagram at homegrownfam. Shoot me some support in the link below. But otherwise, check out any of the other information that I have in the show notes. Sometimes I'll show some links to various references, some websites that are of interest in relationship to the topic. So probably nothing going to go beyond there today because it's mostly just our own experience. But keep an eye out for some of that. And
a lifetime experience.
Lifetime experience, exactly.